Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming in today, and we're going to just look at the KMEA All-State 2021-2022 music. I thought I'd just try a little impromptu today, a little bit of clarinet now, and then in an hour we'll do some saxophone stuff for the alto saxophone. And then I thought I would just do another quick one tomorrow, Saturday, and another one on Sunday to get people ready for their auditions for next week. This is focused on the 11-12 music for the KMEA, Kentucky Music Educators Association auditions this year. I put in the comment area here, so please, let me see if I can make that comments area here active. Let's see here. If anybody is able to say something in the chat area, please feel free. I'm going to just put in a little thing here, chat here. So I thought let's get started with a couple of quick warm-ups. I'll play through the piece a little bit, stop and go. As soon as I think of something, or if someone has a question, we can go ahead and get started with trying to answer questions. I just want to test out my sound here. Okay, so I think I'll just put these over here, my headphones. Let's just do a very quick warm-up, and a nice warm-up to do is to play register leaps from low register, shallow mo, up to the clarion register. So if I start, say, with a low, let's start with a low G here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I gently press the register key. And I'm going to just unplug my headphones here. I think that might be a better option here. There we go. And what I'm doing is a couple of things. One, trying to get a big resonant sound in my low register, my shallow mo register. I'm using a neck strap that helps my thumb to be not take all the weight of the instrument, and then it allows my right hand to be freer, a little looser with my hand, my fingers. I get my big resonant sound in the low register, and so I'm using my air from down here. And when I release the air and I press the register key up very gently, there is a change in the direction of my air and my positioning of my tongue. So if I keep the tongue exactly the same and I press the register, it will come out, but it's a little flat, and it also is just a little abrasive. So I'm having to slow my air down a little bit and just allow that upper note to come out nice and gently. And largely, that's kind of what the clarinet is we're trying to negotiate through registers by very subtly adapting our airspeed. Now, that's a very, very overgeneralized thought. We can get far into this, talking about voicing and positioning of the tongue and shapes and stuff. Let's get right into this piece. This is the fast piece. This is the Rose 40 Studies, number 23. And I'm going to take my Tonal Energy Tuner app, which is a great app, and I'm going to put it on 60 like this. So we're going to just start playing it a little bit. And so those Marcato notes on, and I don't know if this is going to work here because I don't really have screen sharing, but I'll try to do it with the iPad here. These notes here have marcatos, they're accents. And so we should be playing the nice and full. And what I do is I make a nice crescendo down here. I start my phrase here. And I really accent those notes, these eighth notes up here. Now, to make this convincing and musical, there are not a lot of dynamics marked in here, so I'm going to suggest that we go ahead and put a few other dynamics in there. So let me go ahead and, again, play it a little bit through with some more dynamics. So after I played those marcato notes, one other thing to watch out for, I numbered my measures, and I would strongly suggest you do that as well. Put numbers on your bars. We have we'll blow this up for us to see it. We finish this phrase here, and then we have a softer dynamic here. So you want to make that very, very apparent here. As well, as you go through these, we'll talk about articulation a little bit in a moment. But in other words, how to articulate. But notice that the pattern of articulation here is slur these first two notes, tongue these next two, da-dee, ta-ta-ta, da-dee, ta-ta-ta. But when we go down further to the next bar over here, I'll slid it over here, we slur three. And I am hearing sometimes people tongue the upper note, da-da, ta-ta-ta-ta, da-da, ta-ta-ta-ta. But these should all be marked or slurred as written. So now, in order to make that fourth note, this D in bar 10, the D short sounding, we should probably make the E a little bit lighter as well, or not clipped, but sort of lifted. If I play the E long, and I'm overemphasizing it there just to hear it. At a faster speed, though, it will lift a little bit, have a little space between the E and the D, the third note and the fourth note, and that should give us a little sort of propulsion rather, to go to the next little grouping, or the next strong beat. Let's go ahead. Might as well get into this now, the articulation. So on our articulation, we can start with, say, an open G. And here's a quick little exercise, and I got this from Dr. Kelly Burke, who is my hero, and she's amazing at University of North Carolina at Greensboro. She's just fantastic in every way. So let's go ahead and blow into our barrel and mouthpiece, just air only. And then we can gently press our tongue on the reed. So this can be my tongue. And you're just getting a sense of that tongue touching the reed very, very lightly. When you go to blow a sound, and if you make contact with the reed, but just muffle the reed, and just allow the air to go through and let the tongue just sort of flap a little bit, you'll feel almost a little tickle. And that's Dr. Burke's exercise for learning to begin get an awareness of articulation. So let's just start with the concept that we want to have very steady stream of air, and we want to have very light contact or tongue pressure on the reed. So if the tongue is just sort of ever so slightly making contact with the reed, the most important part is really the air. So now, beyond that idea of having steady air and light tongue pressure when you're making contact with the reed, we can make articulation kind of simple in a way that either it's a short articulation or a long articulation. And more about that would be that short means I start with my tongue on the reed, I release the air, I put it back quickly, all with a steady breath. Now, if I want to have it longer, I can leave the tongue off the reed. So I start with the tongue and the reed, I release, the air is going through now, and I'm making my sound. And then when I want to articulate the next note, that's when I put my tongue back. So we get a longer sound. When we're articulating in a series of rapid notes, either when they're changing or when they're repeated, we can, in a sense, play longer notes because they're coming very fast consecutively. So if we go at bar, maybe at 7, So let's go ahead and maybe review that section a little bit more. So when you're putting your metronome on to practice, I had it on 60 here, and that may even be too fast for you. So we'll have to just see how that goes. If you want to slow it down, I would suggest that a handy way to practice with your tonal energy tuner, this is something that I do quite a bit actually, is I put my meter here on 1/4. And then I go ahead and put this on a quarter note. And that way I'm able to just divide my beat however I like. So I'm not worried about a full 6/8 and keeping track in where I am in my bar. And I just worry about each beat and dividing that individual beat. And it just helps me a little bit practice-wise. So here's all our divisions of our beats. And if I put this like this, I'm dividing that quarter note into eighth notes. It sounds like this. And I'll put this up at 60 again. So now if I have that kind of a pulse going, each one of these can be my quarter note, or rather my eighth note in 6/8. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and. Like that. So practicing with your metronome is very valuable. If you do it slowly, you can keep your everything very even. Let's go ahead and so we covered articulation a little bit. Let's go ahead and go forward to bar 17. So this little section at 17, 18, 19, and then 20, 21, 22 is a little tricky. I use a left-handed D flat here. And let's see if I can get my fingers in here for this passage. So as soon as I get, let's kind of anticipate. My right hand is going to generally stay down to give resonance. They call them resonance fingerings. So for your throat B flat or your throat A, instead of just playing an A like this or in a B flat like this, I often will put my third finger and my third and my low C F key. Or sometimes I will put my entire right hand down, 1, 2, 3, and the low C F key. It makes a difference in the resonance of the sound. So if I'm going to play that passage in bar 17, I will, when I finish my C, after this C, now when I go to play my B flat, I actually leave all of this down until I can get down to my A flat, and then I'm going to use a chromatic G flat. So if you can just maybe watch my fingers, second half of the bar. And now a little bit more at tempo. And then the next bar, bar 18, I'm using a chromatic fingering for the B natural. So D, D flat or C sharp, C, and instead of B like this, I use this chromatic key, which is this B flat key and then this little sliver key. And when I make contact with the sliver key, I put it in the back here a little bit, sort of off to the side, because I don't want to cover here these two holes and then have the tone be slightly covered and flat. Actually, it will lower the pitch. So, and when you practice your chromatic scale, you'll get very used to hitting that key just in the right location. Again, in bar 18 and 19, you have those marcatos. And I guess my advice for the marcatos there, all of this, of course, is in context. So as you're playing through, you may become tired, and your positioning, your grip of the clarinet in your mouth may be sometimes less secure. Do utilize those rests that you have, like at the end of bar 16, to kind of just make sure everything is all set and that you're not really clamping down, you're not biting into the reed or to the top of the mouthpiece. But I would back your air off ever so slightly. So think that when you're going to give accents like on those marcatos in 18 and 19, that you're going to play them strongly, but not overly strong, because in an audition situation, you don't want to go like 150% effort, and then you might risk having a crack or a squeak or something. So in an audition, I like to back off just a little bit to play it a little bit safer. Like that. The next passage in bar 20 is a little different. The notes are slightly different. Still, I use a left-handed D flat. So let's go ahead and play both of those passages together. Now, at a faster tempo, even at this tempo, we could get a little bit putting in a note, we could make a mistake. It's easy actually to make a mistake. The two passages are quite similar. So a way to kind of ground yourself is to put a slight accent on each strong beat, the first eighth note and maybe the fourth eighth note. And so then if I put that at a faster speed, and on those eighth notes, we could possibly crescendo ever so slightly if we'd like to. So now this section here from bar 24, 25, 26, 27, those are a little tricky because they're all arpeggios, but they're 5/7 arpeggios, dominant seventh arpeggios in different keys. And except for the G flat one in 26, it's a major seventh arpeggio. It's a G flat major seventh arpeggio. They are all going through from the clarion down to the chalumeau register. And so there's some variation in what we call voicing for the articulation. So this makes the articulation in this particular study more complicated. When we're repeating one note, that's one challenge in articulation. So you're keeping your air steady, and all the shape of your tongue position in your oral cavity is one position. When you're going through registers descending or ascending, you're having to make some very subtle adaptations. So I think a good way to do this is to play them slowly. Get your fingerings correct to know what your notes are going to be. Set up those fingerings. We can go through those right now real quick. And then once we do that, then we can go ahead and start to practice the articulations. I wanted to also give a little quick little thought about fingers and hand position. So I'll say that in one quick moment. Let me go through the fingerings first. So in bar 24, so I think those are all very straightforward fingerings. And then bar 25. And so every time you have an E flat and a C, we're going to have to use a left-handed C, unless you have a left-handed E flat like I have on this Selmer Privilege clarinet here. I could utilize the E flat here on the right or my left-handed E flat. But most of the students that I'm working with tend to have one E flat key on the right side. So that means we are obligated to use our left-handed back C. So just so you know which key that is, you have your G sharp key here, and you have your low E key, your low F sharp key, and your low F. And if you go up a register, up a 12th, you get your C here. So in bar 25, we would use our left-handed C. In bar 26, I like keeping from my F here to my right-handed D flat right here. And then I just keep all of the movement in my right hand. And then I go to B flat like this. Now what I do, and this just is habit that we can easily go in bar 27 to the left-handed G flat. And I say easily, maybe that's not true, because then we have a right-handed E flat after that in bar 27. So I found though that if I go down and just take a nice little breath after the low G flat, So essentially, I'm keeping my G flat because all my other fingers are moving to the G flat. I keep it all in the right hand, and then I take a very quick breath, and then get that breath allows my fingers to move from the G flat here up to the high E flat. So in context, in bar 26, and then bar 27, we have another left-handed C. Now, I don't want to underestimate the amount of time it might take from 27 and 26 to use that left-handed C. So I would definitely spend some extra time working through those. You might try some trills. Keeping your fingers close to the keys. Okay, now I didn't forget. Let me say one thing I was going to say earlier. There was a clarinet teacher, very famous teacher named Leon Rushinoff, and I attended a master class and some lessons with him. And I know of just many students who have told me who've told me this, and it's also written in numerous articles. And I'm sure other teachers have talked about this, but there was a discussion of hand position and fingers. And so this finger prep is essentially finger preparation when you're articulating notes. So you articulate the note, then you rapidly move your finger to the next note, and then you articulate again. So there's almost like a da 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 kind of a movement. So if I do this, for instance, G to F, instead of going like this, you go, you anticipate, get the finger down early. So if I were to play a scale, and you, as soon as you articulate, you snap to the next note. So why is this useful or important or a good way to play? Because it gets your hands ready for the next note. And if you're moving through a rapid series of articulated notes, your fingers become like little hammers, and like in a piano, they just really move precisely. Now they should be relaxed enough, but moving in a very definitive way. One other thing about hands I think is important is that moving from this back knuckle joint like this is great. And then if you tend to collapse this first finger like this, or bend the first finger like here, this will reduce efficiency in your motion. So it's great if you can move your fingers like this and just primarily having the movement happen from in the back here. And that way you have just basically a curve, not a grip like an L or anything like this. It's almost like you have a sort of small tennis ball in your hands or something there. And I also tend to come diagonally like this and diagonally like this a little bit. And this depends. Actually, I will say that hand position, like a lot of things like embouchure, like oral cavity, tongue position, has a level of flexibility. Airstream as well. We can go faster or we can go slower with it sometimes. And this depends on the context. So we can't sort of set it and forget it. But in a general way, if I keep my hand having a slight diagonal like this and a slight diagonal like this, that enables me to access these keys up here and access these keys up here without too much motion like this. All right, let's get back to our piece. So if we get into bar, I'll do the whole series of arpeggios, 24. Now, I didn't hold the last note too long. I made some videos about of these earlier, so they're on the channel here. You can look at them. And I played by instinct, and I essentially ignored that dynamic in 31, 32, 33. So in 30, it says piano. And then I played a sort of big crescendo up to my high F. And I guess I did that instinctively because that's the way I heard the line. In auditions, it's probably best to stick with what the music says. I say probably because you're going to have to use your judgment. If you end up doing no crescendo up to the high F and you get what we call an undertone, something like those kinds of sounds, then that's not great. So I would play with enough sound as you ascend in your line there, your scale in 31. Play with enough sound that you're able to get a full enough articulation and clear control of those notes up there. So one version could be from my 29 being kind of full and forceful. So I came down again at the end. Ultimately, one other question I've gotten from a number of students is tempo. If it is marked in the audition regulations for people to be playing this as dotted quarter note equals 80, which is at this tempo here. Let me get my divisions on. Oops, I missed a B natural. So that is quite fast at 80. So my advice on this would be to take it at a tempo that is comfortable and controllable for you. And so that's a big reason why I didn't talk about breaths at all here today, is because breath placement locations are going to be dependent on your tempo. One thing I will say, and I was working with a student on this yesterday, is that the tempo marking is allegro vivace. And so it is not a relaxed tempo. And so you do want to have this a little bit more on the vivace side, so it's more moving forward. So do try to isolate some specific passages that are giving you trouble, and then go ahead and work those individually. Let's go ahead and give you a quick version. I did this on the videos I made previously, but if it was at 60, you can feel the difference in the phrasing. Now, let me change gears a little bit. I was focused so much on the metronome here because I'm finding when I'm working with the students that is the work that they're needing, a lot of them. And it's great. It's fantastic training to use the metronome. But I want to maybe emphasize a point that's really, I think, fundamental in what we do in music, is that the metronome is a tool. And the tool is there to assist us, to train us to do what? To play with good time, or play even sense of pulse. So ultimately, we want to be able to feel bump, 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 a steadiness and evenness of pulse. So when you play with your metronome, then do turn it off, because there may be some sort of slight flexibility in the tempo. So let me go ahead and try once with a little bit of my interpretation without the metronome, but I'll try to be mostly steady, but there may be some push and pull. So anyway, that's an example of that. And slower tempo. Actually, here's another idea. If we keep going, I'll just keep coming up with some new ideas here. On measure 4, 5, and 6, you have eighth notes on the strong beats on 1 and 4. And if you're playing it at a slower tempo, you probably can lead to those notes with a little bit more of a crescendo. When we're going faster, they kind of fly by all in one sweep. So at a slower tempo in measure 4, so that might give us a little bit more of an idea of phrasing. let's pretend that everybody plays all the correct notes and all the correct rhythms and kind of your own steady tempo, whatever that might be, close to allegro vivace, even if it's not exactly at 80. So then if that's the case, how would you separate people out in an audition? And so the next answer is sound, musicianship, phrasing ideas. So in this case, and articulation, clarity of the articulation, correctness of the articulation. So in this case, what I would say here is look for important notes. And in these types of studies, often there's not a lot of tricks. It's often strong beats that are changes of harmony that the line is moving towards. So you will put a little crescendo towards those and then maybe back off as you release from them. And those little subtle dynamic changes will give us a good sort of shape to everything. Let's go ahead and make some sounds for you. Here's some sounds. So let's get into articulation one more time. So if we go for, let's do the repeated notes. I'll go into bar 25. Oh, that actually brings up a very good point. Articulate. See, I'm contemporary or extemporaneously kind of coming up with these ideas just to give us some, information to think about. Articulation on the clarinet, like we said earlier, is different feeling from low register, cello register to clarion register, and also to the altissimo register from C sharp and above. In the clarion register, though, if you can consider the clarion from B up to C. And now all of that range is a little different. So if I'm articulating on an A, those notes feel different to me than down here. So what I would do is, as you're learning a piece like this, take note of which in a slower tempo, of which articulation, which notes, which ranges articulation is a little bit more challenging for you. I guess what you're looking for is if you hear a sort of like undersound, undertone, a grunting sound, and you're not getting the note to speak precisely, those are the areas that we're looking to focus in on our practice. I can recommend some books actually for us. So let me go ahead, maybe if I can try to write this in the chat for us. There's a Langenus, I think it's called Virtuoso Studies, and I'm not spelling here because I'm writing on a keyboard. Virtuoso. This is volume 3, and I'm pretty sure it's page 22. So you can try that one. The other one that I'm very, very fond of is the Jean-Jean Vade-Mecum. It's more complicated in a way, but what I like about this Vade-Mecum is that you're combining articulation in different registers with repeated notes and changing notes, but you're also thinking a lot about meter, and that is really a fantastic thing. So maybe we can even do a video on that too at some point. I'm not an expert on French music, but I love the French music and I love the Italian music, and they all have really fantastic things for us to learn from. Okay, I hope this has helped a little bit. I'm hoping that you're all seeing this because I don't see any comments in the chat area, but hopefully you can communicate with me. I'm at Western Kentucky University, and if you just Google that, you can find my email. And feel free to give me an email, or for those of you that have my cell phone, please feel free to send me a text message. And I'll look forward to seeing you all soon, okay? Good luck in the auditions, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye.